Okay, cool. So we have a couple things just to kind of get through in terms of big chunks of information. Um, how many of y'all have or have not been able to capture any of the earlier meetings? We had one in like November, one in January, one in February, that kind of thing. Anybody not able to make those? Okay, cool. So not much has hugely changed from those, but we've got a lot more specificity in what's going on here. So we'll run through the schedule as it is now, much closer to finalized, subject to weather and cancellations, versus kind of the huge, more inclusive list that's on the website at logan-park.org. That had a whole bunch of targets of opportunity that would be awesome to go to, and that we've gone to some years, just schedule permitting, but may or may not have fit into this particular schedule. So first things first, the registrar website is completely discombobulated for dates on classes meeting on intersession. So on the course website, it says the class starts May 16th on a Monday, which is a week after exams are done, instead of when it's actually starting, because we always start summer camp immediately following exams for anybody trying to not have to pay for an extra month of housing on a lease or something like that, fully into like mid-June or July. So we're starting on May 9th, which is the Monday immediately following the last Friday in exam week. That has us done also about a week earlier than usual. Usually we're done anywhere from June 10th to 12th. This year we're going to be done on paper June 3rd. And since we're going long distance, and specifically since there's, you may have heard there's a war in Ukraine, which is disrupting things like gas prices and oil markets and stuff like that. So gas is way more expensive than usual. In some places more than twice as expensive. So we're having to be a little bit more economical with how we spend the course fee on gas, so that we don't blow right through that and beyond. Then everybody's really mad at me. And so we don't want that. So the way that we do that is, instead of a bunch of like 2 weeks worth of day trips out and back to Carbondale, where the net mileage accomplished is functionally zero because we're going out and then back to the same place, we're holding that to just a couple of days this first week, Monday, May 9th through Thursday, May 12th. Those are all just day trips. We're going to gather at the ag parking lot and do our thing for that day. We'll come back at night and head back to your apartment or couch surf, or sometimes folk will camp locally. We're going to be camping the rest of the time anyway, so it kind of makes sense. Whatever you want to do. And then on Friday, instead of just going home for the weekend and stuff like that, we're going to head over to Land Between the Lakes National Recreation Area over by Murray, Kentucky, or Golden Pond, Kentucky. It's a lovely spot, and there's a ton of stuff going on there. And we'll spend 3 nights there, and then instead of coming back and doing another week of out and back and forth stuff, head directly further east to, or farther east, excuse me, to Shenandoah National Park in the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains of Western Virginia. So that's going to be a departure from our usual schedule. Usually we come back to Carbondale and we have that weekend off and stuff like that. So since we're going into that weekend, instead of taking it off like normal, I'm going to try and bring you guys back not on Friday, June 3rd, end of day, exhausted and disgusting smelling and all of that. We're going to try and shoot for like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, shooting for about Wednesday on that last week. So we're trying to get back about June 1st, which is 10 to 15 days earlier than normal. So if you have a summer job or something like that, you can start that sooner, make another week or two of pay with that. So hopefully that helps. And of course, once we're out towards Shenandoah, we got a couple of long legs of driving, 700 and 800 miles at a time, but we can basically be within easy striking distance of Washington, D.C. and the national offices of Forest Service, Park Service, BLM, Fish and Wildlife, all of that, and check out a whole bunch more urban forestry stuff going on at the National Mall. Smithsonian Institutes, environmental interpretation, historic interpretation, cultural interpretation, and so forth. Then we've got our first big option I'm pretty excited about this. Next, we're headed up to Acadia National Park that we talked about last fall. But the way the reservations worked out is that we've got the option of going to Acadia for about 4 or 5 nights and hanging out, having a great time. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous place. There's a million things to do. It's lots of fun. We'll learn a ton of stuff there in terms of field skills as well. And then kind of depending on weather and how everybody's feeling, we can either linger 2 additional nights there. We got a group campsite for about a week. Super cheap, as it turns out. And then we can go to White Mountains National Forest for a couple of days, kind of like that, what is it? It would be like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, maybe leaving Wednesday, maybe leaving Tuesday, whatever folks want to do. So a fairly short trip to White Mountains National Forest. If, however, everybody's pretty well donezo, as they say, or over Acadia National Park by the end of the first 4 or 5 day period, we've got an overlapping reservation at the group campground, Barnesfield Group Campsite at White Mountains National Forest. So we can head there a little bit earlier, 2 days earlier, and have more time for the backpacking or base camping section of the class. So if you are super into the backpacking side of things, you want to advocate for heading to the White Mountains earlier to the rest of the group. We'll make a decision once we're there and we know what weather's going to be like and that sort of thing. If you're not particularly interested or you don't care about backpacking or wilderness type stuff, and White Mountains is definitely our spot for that in the Northeast, then advocate for hanging out at Acadia for a couple more days. So we can do kind of either, possibly both. Occasionally we're able to, it looks like we're going to be in 2 vehicles instead of 1. So we're occasionally able to split the vans for a day or 2 and like send one group ahead to get started on backpacking if they want to do that. And the others are sort of bringing up the caboose in the other vehicle, chase vehicle, a couple of days later. So no matter what, by Tuesday, Wednesday, or certainly Thursday of the last week of camp, so the first couple of days of June, we are definitely setting our eyes on home, and it's time to roll. It is a 1,300-mile drive home, usually 17 hours on paper, plus stops. So that's like an overnight drive. It's a beast. It's a monster. But at that point, we're so exhausted anyway, most folks will just kind of sleep through and then wake up. We'll try and stop by my parents' house in Ohio, have a delicious home-cooked breakfast, and then continue on to Carbondale. We'll see how that timing works. Sometimes we show up there at like 3 in the morning. God bless them. Anyway, but yeah, we'll be back definitely before Friday, June 3rd, unless weather or some other extenuating circumstance really pins us in place for that. So that's how our itinerary and our targets of opportunity have kind of solidified into this list. We're now kind of chained to these reservations. What you'll see me doing while we're out on summer camp is constantly checking weather reports, because up northeast in May and June, we may get some snow and stuff like that, or nor'easters like thunderstorms up on the mountains. And White Mountains National Forest at the top of Mount Washington, like we briefly alluded to last fall, is the site of the worst recorded weather anywhere on the face of the earth in terms of quantitative weather records in history. So we're gonna try and shoot our shot for whenever the weather's nice for that section of it. That is definitely a safety and survival thing that's on my mind. So we'll need to be a little bit flexible with reservations and stuff like that. And it may end up being a little bit different than this, but for the most part, this is our schedule. So I'll see if I can't post this on our course website at logan-park.org. A bunch of you have seen that already, and so forth. So that's kind of the basics of the itinerary, leaving out most of the on-site topics for each place. They're all super different. So we'll get a pretty good spread of federal versus state versus local versus municipal, like city versus county and stuff like that. We'll get a pretty huge spread of topics as well. So I polled some of your classmates on the Wednesday versions of this meeting on some things that you're interested in. And what I heard was a couple of folks interested in urban tree care, urban forestry. Several folks, of course, interested in outdoor rec management. One person interested in GIS and like the field side of GIS, so survey grade GPSing and ground plane antennas, stuff like that. One guy who's super into wilderness management. One guy is interested specifically in federal stuff, like that's where he joneses. And then the National Trail System. We're going to cross and be around the Appalachian Trail. We're going to camp about 50 yards from it at Shenandoah National Park and cross back over it on our way back as well. So backcountry and trail stuff. So like wilderness hiking, being a wilderness or backcountry ranger, also on our list of specific topics to target extra hard this year. What other specific topics are you interested in? Another way to answer this question is, what's your career plan for the moment, subject to change, of course. Let's add to this list of topics so I can get us in front of the right people and emphasizing the right stuff on summer camp. We're going to touch on everything in forestry, but this is the stuff that we can go a little bit harder on. So over to you. What kind of stuff would you like to take a look at? Okay. Okay. Let's get that added to the list. All right, so specifically habitat management. Good. What else?
Educational aspect.
Specific regard to environmental research back up. So, awesome. What else? Yeah, sure. Okay. What else? Or anything else?
Check out what happens.
Years later. Sure. All right, so let's see. We're gonna be close to like Hubbard Brook, which is like the original paired watershed place, and a stone's throw away from where George Perkins Marsh wrote Of Man and Nature and kicked off the whole idea of hydrology and watershed management in the 1800s. So all of these topics are on our list of things to do at various places. It's something how to time spent on one topic or another. So, all right, if you think of anything else, let me know. We'll add that to the list as well. So let's see. Good to go on that. All right. Everybody's seen the 3D fly through of some of these different sites just to get a sense of where we're going, or not so much? All right, cool. So I won't spend too much time on that. Just a friendly reminder to take a look at the course website and disregard the Western itinerary notes. We got the Northeastern itinerary all linked up here. And as a reminder, where we're going next with our meeting is because we're going to some places with some lovely and intense weather. So lovely and can be intense. This is in, this is in Acadia, but this can be a beautiful blue sky day, sunny 72, and drop to like 35 and sideways rain in the course of about an hour. Seaside mountains are very different than what we're used to here in the Midwest, where things get telegraphed way in advance and so forth. So we're gonna be careful with that, of course. Let's see. Yeah, White Mountains are awesome. Okay, let's see. Let's talk about gear and then ask any questions. So let's flip over this way. So camera's looking at the gear, and start our screen share. Okay, cool. So we've got kind of the big items for gear. How's everybody's gear assembly going? Are you getting home on your back and shelter? Back for children in a couple of hours. Thermal insulation and this padding. These are cheap. Super fancy label one that pops. 20-degree bag. Does everyone have access to a 20-degree bag? At least 20 degrees Bible rate. Okay. This is one of the few things where I think it's gotta be kind of. So label doesn't say 20 degrees or colder, or lower temperature rating, at least for survival. It doesn't have to be 20 degrees comfort rating, which would be more like a 10 or 15 degrees survival rating, if that makes sense. Gotta borrow one of my extras out of the lab, or one from base camp or something like that. But yeah, we get snowed on at summer camp more often than I'd like in May and June. That's the thing. And one time we got our summer trip canceled from Yellowstone because they had 6-foot snow drifts on day one of camp. So we spent the rest of day one of camp canceling all our plans and scheduling summer camp. That was a stressful year. It's not going to go like that this year. All right, so for backpack, you're looking for like 50, 60 liters on up. 50 liters is really small for a backpack. Now, if you want to do base camping and you don't want to do any schlepping of your gear on your back whatsoever for summer camp, you can do that and be entirely successful. But if you are thinking about backpacking, but you've never really done it before and you're not quite sure what size of bag to get, you're looking for expedition class, which is typically like 65 up to about 100 liters. Okay. So a weekend or summit assault pack is too small unless you have very, very expensive, very lightweight, very packed down small gear. And more power to you if you got more money than got, but for the rest of us, go for the bigger pack. You can get bulkier, slightly heavier gear, be just fine for a tiny fraction of the cost. So they're okay to borrow stuff, as always. You don't have to buy anything to impress me. What you do need to impress me on is saving money by not eating gas station food and getting stuff from Aldi's, Kroger, International Grocery has lots of good high quality food for stupid cheap. Nobody thinks to go to an international grocery store. If you're doing ramen all day, all night, that stuff is chemically similar to refined sugars and the same effect on both your constipation and on your energy level and diabetic coma or shock. So get action foods that you can identify the ingredients by looking at the food, being not super processed. You can see like steel cut oats in it, or the peanuts, or whatever else. Okay. We still have a little bit of time. Got a couple of weeks before camp starts, and that's plenty of time to basically shop for the sale tags wherever you get your groceries, and also to repackage anything down out of cardboard. And in the case of these Starbucks instant coffee things, you mainline that in the morning. Take it out of the cardboard because cardboard absorbs water. Cellulosic materials are hygroscopic, what scientists will tell you, meaning they absorb moisture straight out of the atmosphere without needing condensation. Just like cotton clothes, which nobody's going to be wearing in this class. Nowhere else, right? So, for clothing, and just to close off the thing, everybody's probably, hopefully, can have space for a tote about this size to throw all your like shelf-stable foods in the store, so you don't have to bounce from gas station to gas station and get hepatitis. I mean, that's never happened on summer camp that I know of. But we did have one staph outbreak. That was nasty. Don't share water bottles on summer camp with your friends. Okay.
How big, give or take, is that?
It's file size, so it's probably 15 by 24 by 12 inches, something like that. Smaller is awesome. Looks like we're going to be in two 15-person vans with the back bench taken out, so the university operates those as 8-person vehicles. We're a little bit too few so far in terms of people actually signing up to go in 2 buses. Buses have a ton more storage space. They got like a full extra dedicated room. So we're on the fence right now between 2 8-person vans and 1 8-person van and 1 14-person bus. So if I can swing it, if there's any way that we can afford it, I'll put most of us in that bus and we'll have a little bit more elbow room and a separate room for storage of all of our stuff. So that's hugely important. Whether we're in 1 or 2 vans, that does bring the unfortunate difficult problem of there are not too many 12-volt, 2-amp DC charging. They're just regular cargo vans, right? So the buses have like 6 of them. And as long as we're not daisy chaining too many people's smartphone chargers, we won't blow fuses. All the lights go out. But if we're in those vans, they have either 1 or 2 DC charging ports for up to 8 people. And people are going to get pretty wild-eyed if their phones are dead for too long. Like, we are the digital native generation, so that means, the urge to be on your phone fairly continuously is a thing. I will try to coach people to put your phone on airplane mode most of the time when you're not actively scrolling the gram. Battery with cellular data. Because when we go to these low or no signal places, your phone's going to crank up that transmitter battery drain up to absolute maximum, trying to scream its way to the nearest tower. So, battery levels drop real fast. Don't come on battery mode. You can, if you want to, bring some kind of a battery brick to charge your stuff off of. It's easier to charge something like this. So one plug off of the DC-12 port into this, and this can charge like 6 devices at once. If it's charging 6 devices at once, it can't charge itself fast enough to be a net draw. But I'll try to have some of these available for you guys throughout. I've only got 2 of them. They're pretty expensive. But they are for us and for our use. I do need to hold some battery backup aside for emergencies. In case we need to get up to the hospital or urgent care or something like that, I need to do a lot of communicating real fast in that moment. So I'll probably hang on to one of those pretty tightly, but try and share the other one around so that the other vehicle can have something like that. Typically, everybody's got their own, charging brick as well. Hey guys. All right. Are you guys the alums from the 70s?
What?
Are you guys the alums from the 70s?
Yes.
Welcome back.
Well, thank you.
Awesome.
There's 5 or 6 of us.
Very cool. Yeah, we're prepping for summer camp, so going out east this year, the Eastern Boreal Forest.
Great.
Yeah. Admire these guys. It's exam week coming up real soon, and these guys are here on a Friday afternoon to learn about a summer class. Pretty good deal.
Good.
So, yeah. Tree planting go okay?
Yeah, really great.
Excellent.
Everything looks the same. We just a little look over.
That's all right. I mean, you made it this far. So far, so good, right? So, yeah. Then there's the potluck over at the TIC coming up here in an hour or two. So stop by that if you have a chance.
Okay, great.
See you guys around. So, we have two, they're like 100-watt solar panels. They're basically briefcase things you butterfly open, and they're huge and dorky looking, but they do charge stuff pretty well. That's the upside. The downside is we're not going where they're going to charge stuff really well. It's cloudy and wet at times. At times. When we go to the northeast, because we're going to be on the Atlantic Ocean and the eastern seaboard forest for a while. So I'll do my best to keep everybody topped off on charges, but please help me out by putting your stuff on airplane mode and like re-downloading on Wi-Fi the stuff that you want to stream as far as Netflix, Disney Plus, or HBO Max, whatever. That will help us get a lot farther, a lot better. Your phone can do like 10 or 12 hours of video if it's already loaded on the device. For the other more miscellaneous stuff, gear-wise, got a gear list. Does everybody have a stove? Or would anybody like to use any of the community Whisper Light 2s that I have in my lab? And the fuel bottles with them and pots and pan sets and stuff like that. Okay, cool. I got 6 or 8 of them, probably 5 or 6 of them work, so take several along and we'll just have those available to you. If you are planning on bringing your own, typically the students normally kind of organize it in cook groups, and you can share a stove, you can share a set of like nesting pots, whatever. If you have one person with a jet boil and your group of friends on the class trip, that's really good at boiling water real fast. Cooking stuff in a jet boil, super dicey. It's super easy to melt the neoprene sleeve insulator on there. But other than that, boil water and everything, and you are good to go. If you share cook kits and stuff like that to save weight when you're backpacking, for example, that's great. Do not, under any circumstances, put your hands in somebody else's bag of food. If you reach into somebody else's door, you just deposited a whole bunch of your normal gut biome under your fingernails, for example, into their core. There's no way to get it out. And it's not like giving somebody Giardia, unless you've also got some Giardia prozoas on your hand from handling nasty water. But even just the adjustment process from one person's gut biome to another with the introduction of somebody else's basically fecal coliform. That's an arduous process and an uncomfortable one for you and everybody else in that vehicle in the enclosed airspace. So by all means, pour food that you are sharing with somebody into their hands or into a pot that you're boiling to sterilize at the end. Never reach into each other's stuff. Cool. Cool. In addition to all of this, we're gonna have all of our backpacking and camping stuff, stowed in our packs and jammed in the back of the vehicles. The cabin of the vehicle is typically underneath the bench seats or whatever, or bucket seats in the bus. You can take one of those. We've got space for basically a day pack or book bag size pack for field notebook, snacks, rain gear that day, extra pair of socks in case we get caught out wet, creek walking, stuff like that. Probably want to, especially on a northeastern trip, bring an extra pair of shoes, a quick drying extra pair of shoes. So most of us will be in hiking boots or work boots, heavy duty stuff, and then change into that spare pair in the evenings and around camp, camp shoes. You can wear them in the shower. You don't want like everybody else's weird foot fungus when we stop for coin op showers in one place or another, and so forth. So we are, speaking of showers, going to be absolutely in bear country. So please take an honest and hard, close look. Let's skip through this step for our safety. Everything that you're bringing, food and toiletries wise, doesn't have a fragrance. If so, can you replace it with something that doesn't? Non-scented soap, non-flavored toothpaste, non-scented deodorant is very important. smell like candy, or you smell like Axe body spray, bears don't understand that's not food. They will give us a hard time. We're going to be in some places where, like in Shenandoah, for example, or White Mountains National Forest, where some people do feed black bears. And black bears are otherwise extremely reclusive with very low population density. An adult black bear boar needs like 100 square miles of forest territory or habitat each. So we're not likely to run into them, except in these places where millions of visitors go each year, and some tiny proportion of those millions leaving food behind, and the bears come after. So the Park Service, the Forest Service, and so forth are going to help us out, keep us safe as much as they can. But we got to allow for other people doing bad things, training those bears that human sense, food sense, Axe body spray sense mean payday. And the entire life of the bear is wrapped around getting calories for that winter tour. Okay. So, take a look through, think about swapping out stuff that can burst in your pack, like a small bottle of shampoo. Swap that out with a shampoo bar. Those are super economical. About the same cost as a bottle of shampoo, you get way, way, way more out of it than water shampoo, because most of what you're paying for is the freight and the expense to ship water in those formulations of shampoo around. So bar soap, bar shampoo, bar conditioner is a thing as well. We started using that at my particular home, and it's awesome. Although you can tell by looking at me. Anyway, at least my wife is super cute. Whatever, that's not anything to do with summer camp. Back on target. But we do need to look through our stuff, and if you're aware of in your book bag that you plan on taking on a trip, if you ever had like a yogurt spill inside, or a candy bar kind of melt in there and there's still kind of that grease spot in there, we need to wash that stuff out. So that's imperceptible to us unless it's yogurt and it smells like foot. But it's not imperceptible to the bear by any means. Okay. So we're going to police up our sense real hard for this class to help keep everybody safe. We have in this class though, with food attractive bears stalking our campsite or stalking class. So kind of airbag and far away from camp and dispose of things in a diffuse, no trace, appropriate way, and we'll be fine. All that will preamble about bears and stuff like that to say we're not actually going to be in wildlands filtering our own water and drinking our urine Bear Grylls style. We're going to be in developed campgrounds because it's a lot of work to do backcountry food prep and water prep and stuff like that, and we eat up a lot of our time each day. So we're going to be in regular tent campsites, typically with a bathroom nearby, sometimes with a shower nearby. Sometimes the showers will be in town. You pay an outfitter or a hotel a couple of bucks, and they'll let you have a 10-minute shower. And we're generally going to be in cell phone reception, except for when we are out in specific little pockets of Acadia, and then much of the White Mountains National Forest, since we're in one of the valleys with the highway in it. We might not have any reception over there, so that's okay. I know it's okay, but it might be a day or two in moments when you have helicopter parents who want to check in with your trip like all day, every day. That's fine. And we put together like a Rec Camp 22 hashtag or something. But there will be moments where we can't connect with the outside world too much. We're okay with that, of course. Yeah. Question.
We're not bringing any water.
We need to be able to carry up to 2 to 3 liters at the most. We're never going to be away from unsafe water sources. We will occasionally be away from safe treated water sources. Most of the time, we're going to have one or a couple of 1,500 ml or 1 liter bottles like this, just Nalgene's or whatever. And we fill those up with treated water at every campground and stuff like that, and then pretty much be good for the day, stuff like that. Come back for dinner and refill and stuff like that. Please do get in the habit of drinking lots of water on this class trip. That's going to protect your spine. Your intervertebral discs crunch down as you desiccate and dehydrate throughout the day. You just get physically shorter as your spine compresses, and then have dinner and breakfast, and you stretch back out. In this class, we need to protect our backs on the hoof, and also we need to protect from kidney stones. So that's a showstopper problem when it happens. That's like an 11 on a scale of 10 for pain. We will never be able to enjoy the miracle, mystic excitement of giving birth, gentlemen. But we sure can experience the pain of a kidney stone too. So, need to drink lots of water. And that means we're going to get comfortable being in the woods, right? Learn how to do that effectively if you're not familiar. Cover things like poison ivy, in case you forgot your toilet paper and your toilet trowel and stuff like that. Also talk about using snowballs as toilet paper. It's surprisingly refreshing. Anyway, we'll be in places that have snow year-round. We will be above tree line at moments. We'll have the option of hiking Tuckerman's Ravine, which is the hardest, most difficult, and dangerous 2-mile section of trail in the western hemisphere. So it's all pretty exciting. Lots of stuff going on. What other questions do you have about here before we move on to the next thing? Yeah.
Do you recommend like holding a bladder for your backpack?
Yeah. If you use a bladder instead of one of these are pretty easy to clean out if you throw Gatorade or beer gets like into the plastic and it's like beer flavored water forever after that. Don't do that. But those bladders are pretty hard to clean if you put anything with sugar in there. It's going to be hot and moist and dark. Perfect breeding ground for mold, bacteria, stuff like that. So just water in a bladder, anything goes in these, except for anything hot. If you ever wanted to really destroy your genes, like your genome, not your Levi's, put boiling water in one of these and see what happens when you have kids. Okay, this is what Alex Jones was worried about turning the frogs game. The BPA analogs. These are all BPA free. There are over 200 close chemical cousins of BPA in use by the plastics industry that are like literally one atom different than the molecule of bisphenol A. It's the same thing, similar effects, but it's not the big scary BPA. Okay? So never, ever, ever put hot water, especially boiling water, in any kind of a plastic. You do polycarbonate like this. And in this way, society is preserved. You will pass on your legacy as the lords of the grassy sea and the dove market that you are. Question?
Yes. Well, bug repellent, be okay for like scent wise, or do we have to?
Bug repellent is perfectly fine in terms of scent as long as it's not something like Skin So Soft, which has an added fragrance to it. So anything with parfum or fragrance or the word ester in the ingredients list is no bueno. It's not automatically going to get you killed, but it's a lot more likely to get any of us killed if it's got a fragrance or perfume. So if it's like, if it's the 20% like deep woods off deep, that's fine. If it's the 95 or 99% high test, like Ben's in the orange bottle, and it's like handle this with gloves, high test deep, also fine. Picaridin is a very effective non-synthetic chemical, non-plasticizer. DEET was developed for World War II to dissolve plastics, and it's pretty good at dissolving DNA too. So probably don't want to use DEET unless we really, really have to. Ticks are crazy in the Northeast, but we're not where they are super bad. We are just in the not quite as bad as Southern Illinois part of tick habitat in the far Northeast. So most of our tick concerns are actually going to be here during the local portion, and maybe a little bit at Atlantic Lake, generally not too bad. Especially since it's been kind of a cool, wet spring so far, and we're just now getting into the 80-degree weather for the first time. We've had a couple of freezes, not super hard, but freezes. Hoping that the ticks won't be quite so bad this year. Mosquitoes are not a huge thing, and will be pretty early for a particularly awful kind of flying insect, flying biting insect called black fly. This will be a little bit later in the season where we're going to be. So we're going to basically rewind time. We're going to drive backwards through springtime as we go north, 600 or 800 miles. And up near the Canadian border in Maine and New Hampshire, it's going to be early spring on some days. So we're gonna be ready for that. To be ready for that, we need top and bottom rain gear, separate than a poncho. If you bring a poncho on this class, you're gonna blow off Mount Washington. Your parents are gonna be super pissed at me when you go do an unplanned base jump with a wingsuit. Okay. Those make excellent sails. And wind can hit 50, 60 miles an hour at Union National Park, Filmon Ridges, no problem. And quite a bit higher than that, over 250 miles an hour on top of Mount Washington. On it. So that's the thing. Top and bottom right here, and again, spare pair of shoes that are quick drying, so you can flip out of your nasty soaked boots, let them dry for a day. When that happens. Definitely want top and bottom thermal layers as well. So if you have a fleece like zip up or half zip, quarter zip, that's a good start. You also want a fleece layer for your leg, fleece overalls, and or top and bottom long johns like waffle print kind of stuff. Get super cheap, highly effective army surplus waffle print long johns, top and bottom for a song. You can find them at Goodwill for a couple bucks. Like, you need something, but you don't have to break the bank on clothes this semester to do it. So, most folks are going to have one or two, usually two, zero cotton content from your tee back on out, including your socks. Make sure there's no cotton in your socks, so wool or nylon, something like that. Alpaca wool is very, very nice for camping and backpacking and stuff like that. It's warm while it's wet, so you might still be miserable, but at least you won't die. With lanolin, it is hydrophobic and naturally rot resistant and flame retardant. It's flame retardant, figure it out. Anyway, so top bottom rain gear, top and bottom thermals. Usually two changes of clothes in terms of like performance, synthetic fiber, quick track clothing. Wool also works for those, and have one that can pack down nice and small. Feel free to bring a third top and bottom for days when we're spending 700 miles in the vehicles driving from one spot to the next. And you know, you can just be comfortable doing that. Also, we'll take a couple of 0 days, town days. We can shower and get some groceries, hit up a local microbrewery, do tourist fun stuff if you want to. And regular cotton clothes are perfectly fine for those days, but we've got to have one or at least one, typically two full outfits that you're perfectly safe in if it's blowing sideways, 40 degrees and rainy. Trying to set you up for like expecting the worst and experiencing much better than that. Generally, we do pretty well on weather, but we need to plan on it being like rainy and nasty and cold every single day, as well as breaking 100 degrees and sunny and humid, because Washington, D.C., according to the political slogans, is a swamp. That is also factually true. So we want to make sure that you can be safe and comfortable at both extremes of the weather spectrum in terms of your clothing and your equipment that will help keep you alive when we're at night. Speaking of equipment that is keeping you alive at night, do not go to Walmart and buy a $30 Ozark Trails tent. Don't do it. It will hurt you when it breaks. We've had Ozark Trails tent break more than once, different years, on the first night of summer camp. And that's stressful. I don't want that for you. So please use or borrow or buy a actual like backpacking and camping tent. The bottom barrel, super cheap, like plastic poles and stuff, is good for little kids in the backyard, like the tree inside. Doing professional stuff way out in the elements, so it needs to be a real tent, just like it needs to be a real sleeper bag, it needs to be real food. Super important. Proper like road grade, 4 seasons, storm ready tents, double wall, like alpinist tents are crazy expensive. You don't need something that much. You need a 3-season tent. Okay. We're gonna hit 3 seasons as we're driving around up there. It's nuts. And it's awesome. It's a blast. This is a trip of a lifetime. But I gotta make sure everybody's safe so that we can have a good time on the trip. Any questions about tents? Tents are super important, and they're kind of a big logistical thing, a box to check. So, is everybody good to go with like a real tent? Is anybody planning on sharing a tent with somebody? One of your buddies taking advice? Okay. If that's the case, get at least a 2-person size tent, like at least. A 1-person tent is a coffin. The 1.5-person tent is about right for 1 person. You can at least sit up in a 1.5-person tent, and that's a lot easier to get changed in, get out of your nasty, super wet cold clothes, stuff like that. If you're in a little top tent or something like that, it's pretty uncomfortable for a month. So, 1.5-person tent if you're in a solo tent, at least in terms of size. A 2-person tent for 1 person, palatial. You have space inside for your backpack and so forth, with all of the food and scented items removed. Very good. Back in a bear locker or up on a bear line or in the vehicles so they can destroy our vehicles and not us. If you're 2 people to a tent, which is fine, that's a really great arrangement for if you want to have a backpack, for example. It's a lot lighter per person to carry half a tent than half the 3-person tent than to carry a 1.5-person tent by yourself. So in that regard, 3-person tent for 2 people if you're trying to double up. We have 1 person bringing a 4-person tent for 2 people, and that's on the high side. That's pretty heavy, but that's perfectly okay. If they want to do it, that is fine. Totally fine. It is a little bit harder, the larger the tent gets, to heat it up on a cold night. But your sleeping bag's going to be doing most of that work, right? So round up on tent size. Round down on sleeping bag size. If you are very tall, you need a long or extra long bag, and those are much fewer number. They tend to cost a little bit more. If you are short, don't use an extra long bag because your body has to heat up all that extra space, and it's a lossy process. So you spend a lot more calories, less comfortable. The sleeping bag is either too tight against you and it's compressing the insulation against your body, or if it's too loose and kind of floppy and big, when you need it to be properly insulated. So go for the bag that is correctly sized for your height and girth. Definitely look for a mummy bag, which is shaped like you are, not one of those cheaper rectangular bags, which are very easy to manufacture, but your body has a hard time heating all those extra corners and spaces. Okay. Super important. It's kind of the big stuff for sleeping bags. For this class, we're going to be in some potentially wetter areas, so if you have a down bag, you need to study up on how to keep your down bag dry and how to dry it out if it's wet. Down is not effective when it's wet. It's like wet, thin sheets plastered against your body. It's awful and genuinely dangerous in cold weather. If it's synthetic insulation, doesn't matter. It's basically plastic fibers, and you can't really get those wet. It's hydrophobic. So that works fine, but synthetic fill bags are not quite as durable. So if you're buying a bag for this class, and you want it to last for 10, 15, 20 years, get a down bag. Buy once, cry once. They're a little bit more expensive, but they'll last you a really long time and keep you in good stead. Just gotta take care of it. Okay. Cool. Other questions about gear? Any of the big stuff?
What do you want us to bring on these day bags?
In the day bag goes a small first aid kit if you would like. Bug spray. Snackable foods. So you can eat on the hoof or sit down, drop packs, have a proper meal. Rain gear. Your field notebook. Sunscreen if you're a pasty white Viking like me. And any other sort of day trip comfort items. Hygiene products, that's your jam. Water bottle, and bring, or you want to bring on the latter half of glass way to treat water. So a water filter or your stove and pot fuel combination with boil water, it takes a while. Or something like iodine tablets or tablets or the chlorine drops like Aquamira or a Steripen, which is a UV battery powered light sterilizing kit. Myox, dump a bunch of salt in there, zap it with a battery, generates a bunch of sodium and chlorine, and dump the chlorine into your water and just tap water. Lots of ways to do it. But again, for the most part, especially with the first half of the trip, we're going to be around treated water, even in the campground and stuff like that. So it's not really an issue. It's more of a convenience thing. Just got to remember to go to the spigot before we head out for the day. Space permitting, we have 5 and 7 gallon water jugs that are for only treated water, period. And we can load one or two of those into whichever vehicle has more space. And several people can trip up that all day long. So that's the main stuff for think first about safety and survival. What do I need to get back to the campsite? So rain gear, map compass, GPS on your phone, way to keep your phone charged. A lot of students will invest in some kind of a waterproof pouch or case. A Ziploc bag will not work to protect your phone from water. It's not a big barrier. Your condensation inside. And then the bag will hold that water against your phone and that for sure. So if you get like a small otter box, like the rectangular hard-sided ones, like polycarbonate or acrylic with little rubber gaskets to seal it up, do that. They're also like clear, flexible plastic acrylic bags, like roll tops, like water rafting dry bags. Those work too. Neither is a perfect solution, but it beats a $800 smartphone that's nice. So think about your phone and what it needs. Some more recent flagship phones are at least water resistant. That's not the same thing as waterproof. Sure. So there are lots of shades of water resistance. So look up your phone and figure out what it is. Stuff for day trips. We always want to have those field notebooks to hand. So that's going to be right in range typically. And get anything bigger than those tiny little pocket-sized memo pads. You're going to burn through that in a day. And then you're a cow person because buying extra field notebooks out in some of these touristy spots way away from civilization, very, very expensive if available at all. So get like the 80 or 100 page like hard sided book about this big. Those would be great stand for camp. We get everybody in the habit, of course, taking lots and lots of notes. That's really great at the end. We cut out the exam requirement because people were super unhappy about taking a difficult exam while tired and smelling disgusting at a truck stop on the way back home. So instead, we give you the first half of the summer semester after summer camp's over to type up your notes or take photos of each page and email that over to me. Or you can just, pass me your notebook that be like, I'm done with this class forever. Take it. We'll try to send it back to you. But that takes a while. So, you're scattering off the 4 winds for summer jobs and internships and stuff like that. Take classes online and all that stuff. Not quite sure where to send it. But any option to get the recorded stuff to me at the end works for me. Definitely take a lot of notes. Please make my job super easy in terms of finding out a way to get you A+. Good. I'm confident that you can't go on a trip like this and fail to learn a million things just by doing it. This is an awesome, awesome practicum course. But in order for me to understand that you learned anything, for me to demonstrate that to provosts and stuff like that, I gotta have some evidence of brain activity. So take tons and tons of notes. You can plan to take notes on your phone. That has backfired for people in the past. Because it's hard. The those seawall rocks at Acadia are slippery with it. One kid literally yeeted his iPhone into the Atlantic Ocean, and that was it. Like, it was gone. You know, that water's like 45 degrees, and vertical basalt cliffs are only like 6 to 8 feet high at the shore right there. They're 80 feet high elsewhere, but you know, the waves are coming in from the entire Atlantic across, like the North Atlantic is pretty early, and slapping against those cliffs, and we'll put down there like nobody's gonna dive into that. So you can take notes on your phone, but yeah, I would not rely on that by any means. Use the old pencil and paper. Your pen will probably have trouble with wet pitches. Even rain paints that are coated with a special plastic formulation to be very rough when wet, so that a pencil or pen or Sharpie can still work. But Sharpies, if you get a drop of water on the end, will stop right. Even if there's plenty of ink left. You have to dry them out or whip them real hard and stuff like that. It's just a huge hassle. So pencils, pencils, pencils. Do like the old Soviets did in their space program. We invented the Fisher Space Pen, a nitrogen charged right in any angle and at any pressure level and at any temperature range survivable by humans. Kind of pen. At a cost of millions of dollars. And it's super expensive now, like $25 each forever. The rest is just use pencils. Granted, graphite in a pressurized spacecraft cabin can cause oxygen fires as a spark switch. But we're not competing with those. So use a pencil, like the Soviets. Okay, cool. Other questions on gear? That was a good one about day packs.
I got a question about the feeding.
Okay.
So, okay, like, do we have to bring that up front, or is that just charged to the Bursar bill?
That's charged to the Bursar bill. I don't get to fan myself with any of your Benjamins. So we basically take a gas card with us, and we're drawing against everybody's contribution to that pot. It ends up being way, 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 way cheaper than the same trip undertaken by each of us driving our own vehicles and stuff like that. On a 250-mile field trip the other weekend with the trip class, it was like $15 a person. And it costs almost $1 per mile per vehicle on any trip. So we're going like 5,000 miles. Maybe as much as 5,500 on side trips. So 750 is a lot. It's especially a lot right now with fuel prices. But we're going a lot farther than we could separately. They're pretty strong together in that way. So we can mount up like regulators, as the old rap song went. This year, Williard is switching. This year, Williard is swapping around the schedule on when those fees get charged. Last summer, for whatever reason, Bursar didn't charge fees until after the summer semester was over. So people had already paid for credit hours, 6 credit hours, and then got a 700. No, it was super cheap last year because the boats broke down. They didn't charge for it. I don't know, $350, whatever it was last year. But they got that bill in like late August or September, whatever it was, and people lost their minds. So Williard's like, we're not doing that again. We're just going to charge the whole thing, and then any money we don't spend out of that, we're going to refund back to your Bursar statement. So it kind of sucks. That's a lot of money, but I'd rather refund people than deal with angry parents. Sure. So at least we all know exactly where we stand right now with it. That's kind of it on fees. We get waivers for entrance fees. We get group campsites, which are super cheap. We get insider deals from alums. So this is a really pretty economical trip. No matter how it's sliced, it's a lot cheaper than doing it solo. What else? Other questions on fees or equipment we're talking about at the moment? And again, just for posterity, class this year in 2020 starts on May 9th, first thing in the morning, right? Regular work day instead of May 16th. It is wrong on the registrar's website. Screw that up for all kinds of summer classes this year. We'll start at 08:30. Long working time. 8:30 on Monday, May 9th, not the 16th. Again, we're going to be in Virginia on the 16th. So, go big and then go home. Other questions about logistics like that? Cool. Again, first 4 nights, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night. They are just day trips. We are coming back here. You don't have to go home. You just can't stay here for those first 4 nights. So couch trip for the friend, or lean into your summer lease, or whatever you need to do. Yeah.
So we don't have
Correct. First 4 days are day trips. We are going to practice for those day trips like we're going to play out on the long distance thing. So in your day pack, bring your first aid kit, your carrying on, bug dope, snacks, water, feminine products. Probably don't need any prophylactics. Or whatever. Speaking of prophylactics and recreational things, we are going to be in a variety of states and a variety of political climates. Some of them have legalization laws on the books. Federal venues are super squirrely about legalization. There is no federal scale legalization. The EPA is making real good money off legalizing. So, unfortunately, I gotta be the bearer of bad news. Like, bring some edibles along on the trip. That's fine. We're all adults, and it's perfectly legal here. It's not legal everywhere that we're going, so you need to do your homework if that's your speed. Okay? Like, we don't want to run foul of the federal agents that will be protecting us and enforcing laws. Ryan, hello. Yes. 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 In Utah, where they are zero chill about not only drugs, but they're not even comfortable with alcohol. They have their own regulation in the state of Utah where you can't even get regular beer. It's called near beer. It has a lower alcohol content. And organizations like Anheuser-Busch, with whom you may be familiar, just roll their eyes, throw up their hands, and like, fine, we'll make a whole other batch of whatever cheap, nasty 40 packs or whatever, just for your state. You're special. To answer your question, yes, we did have a pair of students 1 year blacked out on the sidewalk in Moab for hours at a time. And that was an issue. Yes. So as it turns out, you may know this already, but it's a bad idea to pair recreational pharmacokinetics with alcohol. There is a nonlinear combinatorial effect, as the statisticians would say. Okay? So get drunk, but don't do both. Right? No drinking, no smoking, no chewing, no chasing the girls who do when we're on duty. Like when it's daytime, and if our guest speakers who are carving time out of their professional work to come talk to us and give you career hints and their card and say, hey, give me a call when you're looking for a job, that kind of thing. When they can smell the fumes coming off of you, or like that smoky smell, where you have like real red, glassy-eyed stare going on because you forget to blink. Literally, that's how it happens. You forget to blink in your night. That reflex is suppressed. Like they can tell. They know. And it puts us in a super weird position. It makes kind of everybody look bad. So honestly, it's been fine in the past. Like if you have a driving day, take some CBD and pass out. You got like 12 hours driving to do nothing. But when we have some action coming up like the next day, take it easy that night. Your understand some of this is new for some of you guys just turned 21, something like that. But another year we had a student go on a birthday party for one of his classmates in town right before leaving for a week-long wilderness trek, Iowa Royal, and climbed into his backpacking hammock, which has like a self-closing and sealing door at the bottom. You sort of, it's like the Ace Ventura reverse bird scene out of the butt of the Rhino model. Climbed in there, super drunk, and was all A-okay for about 2 minutes, and then like fountain puke all up and down himself, and like filled up the rest of the burrito of the hammock. He was running down both sides of the sleeping bag and inside the sleeping bag, and he started panicking and couldn't get out because it was dark and it was 3 in the morning. And we had to get on a 6-hour, effectively open ocean ferry ride, right? Seasickness. Like 2 hours later, it was a super early ferry departure the following morning at dawn. And all the rest of us could hear just like picking up his toenails and everything in between. And like we spent the next 6 hours puking over the gunnel all the way across Lake Superior, which has crazy waves. And his beer was ruined for the backpacking trip as well, because there's not laundry machines on wheel at the time. So it was a very tough week for him. Very unpleasant just the smell. Uric acid. It's got that smell that makes other people gag. You know, it's like that scene. And he's like, you started throwing up, and then made me start throwing up. Anyway, so it has been a problem in the past. Long story to answer your question. So I'm not too worried about it these days. There were some real noticeables in the past, but won't have the usual suspects this time around, so it'll be fine. And we will be in some awesome, fun places like DC. There's a million things to do. Acadia, Bar Harbor, the town, the gateway town will be in and around. Has a ton of amazing restaurants, bars, and microbreweries and stuff like that. And I don't have any problem with folks doing stuff like that. I think it's perfectly fine. We're all adults, but you're still learning what your tolerance level is, you know, for how much water to drink, when you're drinking alcohol. Now, like before the class, it's a good time to learn. So, I'm not advocating you can drink, I'm just saying do some research. Yeah, so long answer on alcohol and drugs, but it's a work trip. We'll have some 0 days so you can relax and hang out and do stuff in between things. What else? Other questions? These are great.
So you mentioned how many ports do we have, or is there like a certain size?
This is about right. So this is what, 12 by 15 by 18 or 24, something like that. This is on the large size. I was telling the other guys earlier, we're going to be in either 2 8-person vans or 1 8-person van and a single bus, most likely, unless a whole bunch more people just come out of the woodwork and sign up for this class at the last second. And the buses have some storage space, but the vans kind of don't. So something like this was smaller and packed super solidly with things removed from their soggy cardboard containers, packed down. Pretty important. Yeah. If you have a good friend taking the class, so like maybe you and Ellie, combine these 2 boxes a little bit bigger with your 2 people. Food's gonna be super expensive where we're going. In terms of like, grocery stores are pretty small. And also you can get fresh blueberry milk at Southwest Harbor at Acadia National Park. It's so good it'll make you want to get up and slap yourself. It's delicious. But it is also at a tiny little grocery store that serves a couple of thousand people. So that's the thing. So shop for stuff in advance, look for sales, look for shelf stable stuff. Things packaged in metal cans typically have a lot of heavy water content, and cans don't pack efficiently because they're circular cross section and can be kind of wasteful on space. We're getting cans without full top lids, we have a bunch of sharp edges as well, crush them down to try and store them a little better. So think twice about that. But anything packaged into Ziploc bags, is probably going to be fine. Awesome. Other questions? These are great on gear and logistics like the fees and food packing and stuff like that.
Okay, I only sent you a couple. Between the van and the bus, which one has the table? She said one of them has the table.
Yes, so we're right on the threshold of affording the bus or not. It again totally purely just depends on body count. So the buses have tables. The buses have a separate cargo storage room in the back, separate door access for that. And they also have LCD screen TVs and DVD players. And 4 to 6 DC 12 volt inverter plugs for charging everybody's lines and phones, and switches and Tamagotchi and whatever vape pens. I don't know what youth these days like to recreate with. But the vans have maybe up to 2 of those. So if we do end up just being in vans, it's going to be a push to keep everybody's stuff charged.
What are these due?
Those are due pretty much the first day. We're going to start the urban forestry hands-on tree climbing section on Tuesday, the 10th of the first week. We're going to pair up with resource camp and get her done, as they say. So it'll be pretty awesome. But you don't have to fill those out right now. I know they're asking for stuff that we need to like look up or ask for. Bring it by, and if we got all your questions, we'll see you next time. At what time on Monday, May 9th?
8:30.
8:30 at the near corner of the ag lot. We'll saddle up. It's gonna be awesome. Come ready to go with your day gear packed. Fully.
Do we recommendations for unscented products?
Yes. Yes, I do. So,
Specific brand.
marketed towards hunters. So things like Sawyer's, like activated charcoal soap. It's a weird like black bar. That will actually absorb odors, excuse me, instead of putting perfumes on your body. Synthetic is super powerful. Some of them are actually excitotoxic, actually blow out your sensory organ. So yeah, that's the main thing. Hivar, Hivar, makes really, really awesome and not super expensive shampoo and conditioner bars that don't really have much scent at all, and they'll last like crazy, and they won't blow up inside your toiletries bag because we crush them. They're triple milled soaps that are super hard. They last forever. Really awesome.
I found a bottle of them at the REI store in St. Louis of this blue kind of soap,
Yeah.
camp soap.
Camp soaps. Yep. Camp soap is good. It's super concentrated, and
You just need a couple drops.
yeah, you can get away with like a fraction of an ounce for your whole body in the shower. And it'll totally strip all the oil off your skin. You're like real tight afterwards. So camp soap, camp suds. Camp Moore makes a version of that. Coleman makes a version of that. Camp Suds is also a brand with those. Those are all totally fine. It's all biodegradable too. That's good. Dr. Bronner's you can get. And you use Dr. Bronner's as toothpaste. Use it as soap.
Really?
You can use it as shampoo. You can use it as whatever. Castile soap is pretty effective.
I had some trouble with that falling some hair out, having some hair fall out with the Castile soap.
Really?
I think I might have just been using too much.
Well, then definitely don't use that. But yeah, whatever works for you. As long as it's not like Axe body spray or something.
Right. Sounds good. Thank
What
you.
else? Other questions?
Well, that was she only sent me with those 3 questions.
Okay, cool. Right on.
She got nervous. She didn't want to ask when there were other people here.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I mean, if you're asking it, somebody else is wondering. They're just
Yeah.
not ready to speak up. So that's totally okay. Thank you for asking. We just went over the itinerary. We got the dates firmed up with reservations and stuff like that. So we're pretty well good to go at this point. And as long as everybody is clear that it's May 9th, not the 16th, we should be fine. We'll have background you first. Round for questions if you have. Otherwise, we'll see you next time.
Are you going to be the alternate for 30?
I'm trying to get my wife to go. Yes. it kind of depends on how many people show up for the 3 o'clock section of this, but I'm guessing most folks front loaded it with 1 o'clock because it's Friday afternoon.
Right.
But yeah, if I can, I'd love to be there. So
Hope to see you
sounds
there.
like it's gonna be a good shindig.
And we'll though. Yeah, we're bringing some impossible burgers too for people that don't want to eat.
Ah, those are delicious. Awesome. Cool. Thanks, man.